Hey, what's up, political soul food? Welcome back. It's your boy Kasaun. Tonight we're talking about Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, who's in the hot seat right now for past racist actions and affiliations, all that cray cray stuff. So we're gonna talk about or debate or converse on whether or not he should resign. All right, there are a lot of takes on this issue. I'm sure many of you have the right answer, but I would definitely like to chop it up here with all of you and see what's good. I have some opinions of my own, and so I'm gonna give everybody a chance to chime in. Going to play our intro music for this buff, and send some alerts out. Let's get down to chop it up on another night on political soul food. Be right back after this break. Let's do this, y'all. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, topic is, should Governor Ralph Northam resign? So, what's the issue? So, for those of you who might not be sure what the issue is, well, here's a quick recap. The issue is that Homeboy was caught, allegedly caught, posing in blackface or in a KKK robe in his med school yearbook. That's the situation. And so for those of you who are following, you probably know the course of events. So apparently he admitted to being in the photo, being one of the characters, and then he recanted later after looking more closely and I guess jogging his memory. And so as well, he admitted to some kind of blackface performance where he was in a dance competition. I guess he wanted to be Michael Jackson and sort of darken his skin. And so, when from every angle, it seems like this guy is just guilty of being racist, and it seems that the best punishment for him and for everybody in his town and all around America is to resign. Okay, so now the story is that it might not be him. The people he wasn't in charge of putting the photos together, and so he's claiming that he's innocent of the main charge, which is being one of those characters. But he also already confessed that he sort of enacted some kind of insensitive act. So I want to know what your take is. I have my take, but I want to sort of go through what the different perspectives, the main perspectives that are running right now. And so one of the main points of view. Let's start with the Dems. Is that certainly he needs to step down. That many African Americans feel that his actions in 1984 are well past the period since the civil rights movement occurred and accomplished some major changes in law, and that there is no excuse in saying that, well, it was something that I was raised in, or I didn't know any better. Okay, and basically, if he feels that he really changed from the culture he was born in, then he had plenty of time to confess, to come forward. All right, so that's how a lot of Dems, and particularly African American Dems, are viewing it. You have those who are saying, well, he apologized, he is embracing his negligence, his insensitivity to racist actions, whether or not he is only guilty of, let's say, trying to, impress people to be like Michael Jackson or whatever. And so, he has a changed heart. Look at his policies and look at his consistency for the liberal cause. So that's one, that's another take. And so let me move to the Republican side, which I am very much more suspicious of, and that is, yes, he should resign. But many of those Republicans and conservatives have no problem maintaining their support of Trump, maintaining their support of Mitch McConnell, and other blatant racists, and those who are even more insidious and very harmful to this day, who are pushing policies that are reinforcing structural and systemic racism. So that's the Republican side, and my critique against the Republican side, which I said prematurely. I want to say that. And also among the Republicans, they're saying the Democrats are hypocrites. Some had said, well, Democrats are quiet on this issue. And it's actually not true. Democrats were probably the most fierce and outspoken on this issue. And they're calling for his head. They want his head. They want his head. Right? So the Democrats, more than the Republicans, clearly are on top of race, transgressions stemming from racism, bigotry, misogyny. So, don't forget Al Franken, who got kicked out of his position because of allegations. So, the Democrats are not hypocrites in that sense. I'm not saying that they're not individual hypocrites, but on the whole, the party tries its best, for what I see, to champion the cause of equality and pluralism and tolerance. And then you have the third group, the non-voters. And this is an interesting group, because among the non-voters, right now I'm talking particularly about the even African Americans who say, well, that's the reason why I don't vote in the first place. And so, those who say that, if you want to take a nihilist view of it, then fine, you maybe shouldn't vote. But then that comment is not really helpful, and I don't think it's practical. And basically, they're caving into sort of a predetermined fate for society if they feel that things can never change. So that group I'm not going to really respond to as much, because they're not in the arena. There's some comments here on YouTube and on Facebook. Let me just see if I can pull some of them up. Let's see real fast. Let's see what some of these chats are here. One is, however, as a VA resident, I for one say it is time for Northam to go. However, I find it interesting that they are trying to turn over both the governor and the lieutenant governor. What is up? Can you give some examples of structural and systemic racism policies that are being pushed by the right? Wow, Vincere, thanks for the questions and comments. In terms of the systemic, structural, and systemic racism that's being pushed, I've talked about that elsewhere, and I can definitely get into it again, and even do like a special podcast for it, right? For this topic. So please, subscribe or let me know how I can reach out to you, and I'll let you know when I have this discussion. In fact, I would invite you on the show, or you can call in, and we can, have a conversation about that. So for one, the systemic racism and structural racism we can be seeing in Trump's push for the extension of private prisons and for the dismantling of protections for criminals, and also the encouragement of more robust policing, which is undermining the Fair Sentencing Act and Obama's criminal justice reforms. It's a book that I highly recommend called The New Jim Crow, which shows the evolution of Jim Crow, overt racism, and state-sanctioned segregation and racism, the evolution of those forms into the prison system and the pipeline from black communities to prisons. And these are systemic structures of systemic racism in a way that they prey on black communities or communities of color. We can go on in that more and more. So let me go over to Facebook really fast to see what comments are there. So let me pull up Facebook here on my computer so I can see. I got three screens here for Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And let me just say right now that I appreciate you all being here having this conversation, whether or not you agree with me on these issues. Having this kind of dialogue, I think, is exemplary of a deeper principle in American political culture, and that is, being able to have dialogue without shooting each other up, right? This wasn't always possible. Many people have been excluded, and some still are. So for us to have these differences like this is really amazing. And feel free to have your disagreements. You can be as passionate as you want to be. So Drew says he had full creative license of his page. All right, cool. So he had full creative license of his page. I'm hearing differently from various sources, not just from him. And I'm not going to try to get into like protecting him on like, well, why did he have, why didn't he try to do anything since becoming, governor or get into politics? All right. So if he's going to fry, he's going to fry. But I have some interesting alternatives on this matter, and I want to pose to you. I want to say what's up to Wayman. Wayman, thanks for coming through here. So one of my things I was thinking about is this, and I'm speaking from a certain perspective as a liberal, as a black liberal, progressive guy, and one who is black and proud, and a person who's very much is aware of systemic and structural racism. I'm not so sure that the first, well, even if it's the first response should be to just throw this guy out. Maybe so. But I want to talk about something here. If we have this guy in a state of mind where he is pleading for his innocence and saying that he made a huge mistake, and in any way he frames it, he is admitting that he made a mistake. Why don't we send him a proposal to show how sincere he is? I mean, he's willing to do just about anything to show that he's for the cause for making America better than it is now, to address racism, and during Trump's presidency. Why don't we propose to him to enact, as governor, since he doesn't want to step down, a robust program that addresses the racial and economic inequities in the state of Virginia. Sort of a state reparations act, something that pushes and expands healthcare, education for all, uh, job opportunities, business opportunities for minorities. Why don't we draft something like that and make demands for him to lead this initiative in a way that has never been done in any state, and which would take great courage, even without our pressure, to push it such a program in a state like Virginia. I think we have this guy here who, um, if we want to believe him or not, who's at least in a position to make amends and a way that could be advantageous for the cause. This is what I'm seeing right now as a potential opportunity. Jerome says the way he pivoted away from what he initially said would make him not believable. That is true. And so we have nothing to lose in a sense. At least now we can make that proposal and we can watch him closely and ask for his head. But at the moment, we let me just keep it real. As African Americans, if we take away or hold to the side the emotional aspect of what he's doing is wrong and how that impacts us, right? Seeing someone, in the 80s in blackface. If we take it as as a business transaction, right? If we look at it as a business transaction now, here's our opportunity. As Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that we can't really change mindsets or attitudes, but we have a chance to change policy. We have a person here who's on the line, whose reputation, whose legacy is on the line. At least as far as he's concerned, he doesn't want to go down in history as a racist. Let's all accept that he is a racist, but we have someone who doesn't want to go down as a racist. We can easily point to any other, blatant racists or those who just ignore their own transgressions. We have the Trump administration who just overlooks their own dirt and complicity and structure and systemic racism, and their colleagues. All right, they only really get vocal when something is so egregious that they're unable to ignore it. But they have no problem receiving all the votes from the KKK, neo-Nazis. There's no problem with that. There's no problem rallying these guys here. So we have a person who is embarrassed. And let's say he's playing embarrassed. Fine. Let's play on that. I think we have an opportunity here. And exactly what should be proposed, I think Virginians know. And this is not something that Virginians on the right would accept. In fact, here's what would be a great thing to do, I would say, particularly to call out, to put the spotlight on many of Trump supporters who are acting like Trump doesn't have racial baggage, right? Who's entrenched in racism himself, and many others. If they want this guy to go so badly, let's say that this guy steps up and say, you know what? Let's say the governor steps up and say, all right, here's what we're going to do, white folks. I made a horrible mistake in my past. And we know I'm evidence that racism is still here. Now, I'm in a position to make amends. People want me to step down, but I don't want to because I don't feel like it's right. And I'm really for the cause. And you say you're really for the cause because you want my head. You want to put me on that guillotine and chop my head off. So why don't we all do this? Why don't we establish a robust policy for the aggrieved people in our state of Virginia, for African Americans who continuously endure affronts physically, psychologically, emotionally, legally, socially, in every way possible. And why don't we address some of the structural issues? Unemployment, health, education, and even just treatment by law enforcement. Why don't we insist on a policy being brought up right at this moment? Why don't we insist on having televised conferences on racism Why don't we insist on him stepping up policies for the police department in Virginia that are going to keep an eye on an unequal treatment, abuses, okay, constitutional abuses to black people's rights in that state. Let's bring him to the bargaining table first. Let's bring him to the bargaining table first. Let me give a shout out to Mike on IG. And Mike posed a question. That's a question that we'd have to take up on another show. What do you think of New Jersey making it mandatory to teach LGBT history? Well, we got our next show for coming up this week. We'll make that probably a Wednesday show or something. I think I had something for tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. How about that, Mike? But I really do think that we have something here, folks. Okay, it's one thing, because here's the problem. A lot of people like to say racism is still here, right? A lot of black people like to say nothing's changed. Okay, black people. So you're essentially saying that we still have racist people in government. Many of them are saying that, and they're in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party alike. So if that's the case, let's see if we could just truly accept that, and now begin to negotiate with those who are saying, well, I'm trying to make a difference. I'm trying to step outside of my racism. I made a mistake. I acknowledge that. Okay? We have somebody in a place, not just of power, but also in mindset. And as Jerome said, people might not believe him, but at this moment, if he's not going to resign, he's not going to resign right now, it seems. People are asking him to step down, but what I heard recently that there's no way for the state legislature to get him to resign. So his transgression does not fit the bill where he could be legally removed. Now, imagine if he was like a Trump and said, well, I can shoot somebody with Avenue and still get away with it. Or, so all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Talk about ish-hole countries and, rumors of that and other things that he's done and said and still is doing, right? Trump is unrepentant. He's not confessing anything. He doesn't care. And then if he says, I'm sorry, he gets right back to what he's going to do. We have a person who's actually entertaining the notion of being apologetic, right? Now, for some, he's wish-washy, he's untrustworthy, but we have somebody at the table. Again, that's my point. He's at the table right now. So let's see what we can get right now while he's at this table. And let us set the stage for incoming governors or incoming elected officials to know that, okay, we're gonna play with you, we're gonna rock with you, but when it gets real like this and you get caught out there, you're going to have to step up, pay up, or get out. Want to holler at Dr. Marshall? Welcome. So this is where I stand. What do you guys think about that? Let's see. We got some more interesting comments from Vincera. We need to. Let's see here. You got some interesting comments here. I would argue that the push for voter ID laws might be considered structural or systemic racism. Absolutely, that's another one. Just past criminal justice reform pension. The criminal justice reform that's been pushed, Vincera, actually get rid of a lot of the protections that Obama put forth. So it has the appearance, it's under criminal justice reform, but it's clearly not attempting to make any serious steps forward, at least on Trump's behalf, because one of the first things he had Sessions do when Sessions got in is to just cut criminal justice reform. So if anything, we're probably just underneath the kind of reform that Obama had begun to implement when he was in office. So let's pay a close attention to that one, and we can even have a talk on that, on what really was in the justice reform. But as of now, I mean, the undermining of the kinds of initiatives that African Americans wanted to see, although it came too late under Obama. If Trump erases those things and try to implement some patches, some band-aids on some severe bruises and cuts, so I don't see that as a major initiative. So let's see here. You have some other interesting comments here too. I want to go back to Vincere here on on YouTube. He says Northam made himself a distraction. Now he is hurting the Dem Party, and so it's time for him to go. Maybe it is time for him to go, right? But I think that there's opportunity here that Democrats could try to capitalize on. I think as Martin Luther King reminded us, that we have to be a bit creative. And so yes, like for us, it's been time for so many politicians to have gone, right? And if you ask Democrats right now, if we had to choose, if we could choose who would go right now, out of all the people right now who are known to have participated in racism or whatever, in a picture or supporting the policies, by far the majority of Democrats would ask for Trump to leave right now. So because of that, in a sense, he is a distraction, but he could also be an opportunity in which he, having nothing to lose, but only gain by trying to make up for the damage, we can get him to go all out. So I don't know if you're a conservative or a Democrat, right? But as a Democrat, as a liberal, I would rather get him to go all out more, because he is likely to go all out than any other Democrat right now who's in cruise control, right? They don't have to perform any more radically than they are right now, because nobody's really coming after them, right? So they can stay more in that sort of moderate sort of status. And so that's how I see it, as a Democrat. And so I think that it's time to to see if we can take advantage of this situation. So, a lot of people can say, he's distracting, he's distracting. He's no more distracting than Trump right now. I'm going to keep it real. He's no more distracting than Pence. I personally despise, their that administration. And there's so many things that I would like to see. And so, I don't know if you're coming from the left or right or not. So if you're speaking on behalf of Democrats saying that he's distracting, then fair enough. But for me, there are many more distractions and attacks against the American. Well, I wouldn't say against the American way of life, because Trump is in fact promoting a traditional America. He is in fact trying to make America great in the eyes of many, and it was greater in the 50s. It was greater, in the 40s. It was greater in the 70s for many people. Or even the 80s, for example, under Reagan. It was greater for those people, for certain people who didn't have any civil rights issues, didn't have any economic issues, didn't have any social or cultural attacks against their way of life. So, if so, in a sense, Trump is doing the right thing for trying to bring back that kind of America, but others don't want to go back there. We want to move forward. And I think that we may have found our gladiator, in a sense. Sometimes you will find the least likely person could be somebody who could really make a difference for you. And it's funny, because that's how a lot of evangelicals are seeing Trump. Evangelicals know that Trump bragged about and actually encouraged people to grab women by their private parts. They know that. They know the kinds of dealings he's been in. I'm sure many of them heard him say that he hoped the recession happened so that people like him can make a lot of money. Working class heard that. But Trump was an exception, because he was fighting for something that transcended, that was prioritized over those issues. So even though he is, a sinner, according to their book, God is using someone, in their language, God is using him, for his plan for America. And so we shouldn't judge, Trump based on, you know, how we may judge each other as, saints of God. You know, God is working something different through Trump. And so this is kind of a narrative that I hear a lot from evangelicals, and they give him, a lot of room to screw up from a religious perspective. And even the working class who voted for him, who still support him, even though he bankrupted a lot of his businesses and didn't pay back a lot of contractors, and even though he's saying put up a wall and he's found still hiring undocumented immigrants, despite all of that, we can still work with Trump because he's going to do something great for us, something very particular. Trump has nothing to lose. He's going to do something that will make a difference, that will compensate for his transgressions. He's sorry. He's apologized. I'm saying to the Democrats, why don't we see if we can get that from Ralph Northam? Republicans, conservatives want to see him go, not because of his racist act. They know the hypocrisy of that. They're using it as an excuse to get rid of him because of the policies, of his liberal policies, where he stands with healthcare and all sorts of other things, where he stands with women's choice. That's what they're really attacking. They're attacking that and using something else as a cover. So they're getting us to do their bidding to get rid of him, and then work against the other person, right? Fairfax is going to come up perhaps, and I'm sure he can great things. He hasn't really been vocal on this issue right now, and I'm sure the attacks are coming out on him already. So they're under fire. But despite that, I think Democrats and liberals and progressives need to get a little bit more creative. We can learn something from Republicans. If they're willing to sacrifice many of their values on the surface for something deeper, for a deeper commitment to their cause, maybe we can think about that. And so let's think of working with Northam, if possible. If he's going to stay there, let's turn this distraction into a transaction. That's my point. Turn the distraction to a transaction. Hola, hey Dominican Butterfly, out here on IG. This is an opportunity for that. And so let's think about that. Let's make demands. So as someone is saying here, he's a distraction. So again, let's turn the distraction to a transaction. That's what I'm calling for at this point. Now we can sit here for the next few weeks and keep, saying he needs to go. Everybody's saying that. I think some of us can say, well, if he's going to stay, here are the demands we're going to make. If he's truly trying to get our trust back, then show up like never ever before. Why don't we get him to be that spouse, that significant other, that boyfriend that made a horrible mistake, and he wants to show his wife, his girlfriend, his loved one that he's so sorry, and he's going to make amends in a way that would just melt her heart, melt his lover's heart, and give him forgiveness. What can we ask of him to get him to melt our hearts? Let's think about it that way at this point. That's what I would like to do. Let's see if he's about it. And those who are pushing against him, particularly other white individuals, particularly conservatives, who are saying he needs to go, let's see if they'll be willing to get with him to make amends, to dismantle structural racism and systemic racism, to have that discussion. Let's create a program in Virginia, and maybe that can be a trailblazer for others to follow. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Let's turn this distraction to a transaction. That's what we can do. Again, as Martin Luther King Jr. kept trying to remind us, it's not about changing people's attitudes here. It's about changing policies. It would be morally inconsistent to forgive Northam, as you could no longer claim the moral higher ground. So I think I'm being misunderstood here. We don't necessarily have to. It's not necessary. What did you say? Forgiving him. Well, well, two things. It's not necessarily forgiving him that we can make this transaction, right? So what I'm saying is we're making a transaction. I'm putting aside the the emotional psychological frustration to say at this point here, because this guy wants to be forgiven. Let's see what he's willing to do. Let's see if his actions can come close to his stupidity in the past. Since he's willing to put himself out there and take ownership of that mistake, if this man's going to come forward, yeah, obviously he's been inconsistent with things, but if he's going to still come forward and face the fire and say and beg for forgiveness, then I think that we can take advantage of this opportunity because we know others like Trump are not willing to do that. They're not willing to do that at all. And I think we have a great opportunity for that. Listen up. Thanks for tuning into Political Soul Food. That's it for tonight. We have one more comment. So you're saying that we could use it as leverage so that he can be made to toe the line. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. That has always been the African American position for a very long time. And that we knew that Abraham Lincoln, I mean, even the early founding fathers who were trying to get rid of, slavery, supposedly had slaves. This is, unfortunately, living in America has forced many people to be pragmatic because we're as African Americans and other minorities and even women had to deal with structures that were just so unbearable and so stubborn that we had to find opportunities where we can find them. Find individuals, the John Browns, or Harry Beecher Stowes, or Abraham Lincolns, who still may have had, certain prejudices against people in the whole. We always had to bargain and negotiate. And so what I'm saying is this is an opportunity to do so. It could be. It might not be. It might be time to carry him out on the cross. But I think it's something that we can entertain. As Martin Luther King was trying to remind us, in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, in 1968, before he was killed, we have to get creative. We have to think outside the box. White politics don't have to think outside the box. They've created the box. I'm forced to work with what I have here as long as I stay. So I'm working with the tools of American democracy, even though some people don't want me to have those tools to vote. I'm all for diplomacy. I'm all for conversation. I'm all for education, even though people want to corrupt education and put in textbooks that Africans were immigrants who came here for agricultural employment. You know what I'm saying? So I had to deal with this my whole life. So I want to implement this in the political spectrum as well. Maybe we could talk more about this. Feel free to leave some comments. You can hit me up at, what is it? I think it's Kasaun, Political Soul Food at KasaunHenry.com. And I can respond to some of that, or you can leave comments here if you want to follow up on this conversation. But now we have to go for the night. For everyone who participated and who showed, thank you very much. I'm on Patreon. For those of you who want to show support, you can go to Patreon and find different ways to support this for the technology and everything. I want to start getting guests and traveling around to talk more about these issues. Again, we're here to, we may disagree with me, but we can expand our common ground by having a conversation on these issues and make America what it really could be. Okay? Making it smart. Right? Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for chiming in to Political Soul Food tonight. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace and love, Facebook. Peace and love, IG. and YouTube. Thanks a lot for showing love.